Somewhere in a prison, a hooded figure is brought in, face covered. An officer attends to them, saying they want their belongings back since they're of great worth. The prisoner asks the officer if he knows anything about Tewkesbury. In Malta, Tewkesbury waits for his wedding, but Enola is late. Only Lady Tewkesbury arrives first. Enola, hesitant, finally leaves her house and gets in a cart. The cart is chased by a masked rider. Enola tears her dress, grabs a gun, and leaps out only to find it's Dr. Watson, who was chasing her because Sherlock is missing, possibly kidnapped. Enola recaps her happy life, joining the ranks of great detectives, working with Sherlock, and dating Tewkesbury, who proposed. Sherlock had been secretive about a case. Lady Tewkesbury planned the guest list. Enola's mother, Eudora, is a fugitive and can't attend. Sherlock will walk Enola down the aisle, reluctantly. Lady Tewkesbury insists on Malta, where she married her own husband, currently under British military control. The wedding happens quickly, overwhelming Enola with a huge family she wasn't prepared for. At the table, the governor is present, and Brigadier Sampson, Tewkesbury's godfather, stands to give a toast, a crude one that mocks both Enola and Sherlock, though he laughs it off. An officer appears on the upper story, and Sherlock quietly leaves the table. Enola finds him later and confronts him about the secret case he's working on in Malta. He deflects, but she presses him with questions. The topic shifts to her marriage, and Sherlock criticizes her for giving up her name. She argues her father is dead, her mother lives as a fugitive at constant risk, and she'd rather give up a name than a chance at love. Sherlock calls her emotional. She storms off, frustrated. It's the last time she sees him before he vanishes. Enola notices his garments are untouched. Whoever took him knew him well enough not to bother. His pipe is still warm and smells of an unfamiliar tobacco. She opens one of his notebooks and finds it filled with codes, then spots a dress thread pattern caught on the floor. Certain Sherlock left her a trail. She finds Morse code scratched onto the mirror, spelling coast, a city in Afghanistan, Watson explains. She realizes Sherlock left the clue while being dragged out of the room. Enola rushes down as the wedding party returns and spots the officer who was on the upper story the other night. Seeing her, he takes off, and she chases him through the streets. As he runs into a corner, he's shot from above. Enola sees a window closing and runs after the shooter, but the dying officer only manages to whisper what sounds like wrath, before taking his last breath. Back at her place, Enola tries to make sense of all the clues and works on deciphering the codes in Sherlock's diary. Interrupted by someone lurking at her door, she grabs a candlestick and swings at the person opening it only to find it's Tewkesbury. She apologizes instantly, but he notices blood on her hands. He's heard Sherlock is missing, and she explains everything that's happened. Tewkesbury is hurt that she was late to her own wedding and admits he could tell she'd been unsure about it from the start. She tries to apologize, but he leaves the room. Later, Enola goes to the spot Tewkesbury first brought her to, thinking of her mother's old belief that Enola would do better alone. There's a cave there where his father once claimed treasure was hidden. As children, he and his father would go in with matches and imagine finding a chest of riches. She admits to herself that she never meant to hurt Tewkesbury, and isn't sure she can solve this case, though she fears that if the kidnappers already killed once, they could do anything to her brother. Meanwhile, Sherlock is shown chained up somewhere in a dungeon. The next morning, Enola wakes to find the wedding castle burning. She runs there immediately, hearing that Tewkesbury went in to find his mother. Pushing through the fire, she finds him and hears his voice. He notices the doorknob broken and realizes at once that his mother must have been kidnapped too. Enola confirms it, and they get out together. Watson checks on Enola. She's physically fine, but the shock will linger. Watching her look over at a troubled Tewkesbury, she asks what her brother would do in this moment. Watson tells her how, when he first moved in, he tried befriending Sherlock with nightly tea, was ignored, nearly gave up, then finally earned his trust with honesty about his own case. He says Sherlock isn't here now, but she is, and Sherlock believes her mind is equal to his own. Enola brings Tewkesbury a cup of tea, and they talk. He confirms it must be the same people who took his mother, whom he last saw at 9 p.m. saying goodnight. Once alone, Enola realizes the arsonists burned the house because they were searching for something they never found, and wanted to make sure no one else would either. Searching the room, Enola finds a bundle of war medals. Hearing someone at the door, she hides with a sharp object and grabs the intruder, demanding to know where Sherlock is. A fight breaks out. She gets the upper hand and pins him in a chokehold. He finally admits he believes Sherlock was taken by Professor Adeline Rath, a brutal, well-connected figure with the governor's ear, who appeared in Malta only a year ago, and whom nobody fully trusts. He was following Enola, hoping she'd lead him to Rath. He introduces himself as Millie, from the anti-reformist party, fighting for a free Malta. Police sirens interrupt them. Millie flees, promising he'll find her again. Police arrive at the scene and take Enola to the station. The officer says she's been talked about since the shooting in the street, and she failed to report the murder. Enola insists she's investigating the whole case and brings up the name Adeline Rath, which visibly unsettles the policeman. Just then, the governor barges in with Tewkesbury and scolds the officer for holding her. She's released with an apology for the inconvenience. Outside, Enola shows Tewkesbury the medals she found in his mother's room. He guesses they're his father's war medals, likely meant as a wedding gift. Just then, Enola spots a girl ahead whose dress matches the same thread pattern found in Sherlock's chamber, and chases after her. It's the middle of a summer carnival. Enola pushes through the crowd and follows the woman through a door into a wide tunnel. The woman turns on her with a gun, and Enola asks if she's Adeline Rath. The woman denies it, says she's made a mistake, and is shot dead before she can explain further, warning with her final breath that Rath will kill Enola too. Crawling further, Enola deduces the woman was Mira Troy, freed by corrupt officials for information. Mira Troy pulls Enola in but is overpowered. She confirms Sherlock isn't dead yet and taunts Enola about ruining her family. Mid-fight, Millie appears and grabs Enola, then sets off an explosive to escape, but it's actually Eudora, Enola's mother, who intervenes and reveals herself, having secretly come for the wedding. She warns Enola, "Look forward, but never forget to watch what's behind you." Enola tells Tewkesbury everything, frustrated at falling for traps twice. He reassures her he chooses to stand by her. They share a tender moment at the beach, and she apologizes for her wedding day hesitation, explaining it was about feeling overwhelmed, not doubt in him. In the dungeon, Moriarty brings water for a desperately thirsty Sherlock, clearly enjoying his suffering. He asks her to give water to Lady Tewkesbury too, and she says she will if he can guess her plan. He reasons she came to Malta a year ago, likely with help from someone in power, and somehow arranged for his sister's wedding to be held there, though he can't work out how. She tells him to ask his cellmate. Apparently Lady Tewkesbury couldn't stop talking about the wedding, and a woman in a violet dress reminded her of the place where she herself got married. He asks if this is all an act of revenge. She counters that his mother once blew up a post office, and no one flinched, but when she steals from the corrupt, they send the police after her. Back with Tewkesbury, Eudora, and Watson, Enola finally decodes Sherlock's notebook. It reveals the name Moriarty. Tewkesbury points out the hat of the mysterious woman in purple came from an expensive shop. She's likely a spy, not a rebel. Enola recalls seeing her with the governor and a masked man wearing a medal from the Battle of Coast, worn by Brigadier Sampson, who fought there alongside Tewkesbury's father. They set a plan. Watson and Tewkesbury head into the military office while Millie, Enola, and Eudora sneak in separately. An officer confronts Eudora, who tries a posh accent before simply pulling out her gun and forcing him to lead them to the records room. Meanwhile, Tewkesbury meets Brigadier Sampson, who claims there's still no news of his mother. Tewkesbury says he's really there to ask about Coast, where his father once served. Watson introduces himself too, revealing he knew Tewkesbury's father, and that the man had wanted his son to learn the truth about the war so he could find absolution. As Enola drags the now unconscious officer aside, she finds a file on Coast with pages ripped out, but using the indentations left behind, she reconstructs the missing text with a pencil. The reconstructed text reveals that 1 ton of Afghan gold was stolen during the war, and that Moriarty already knew about it through an inside man, Sergeant Smith. Enola bursts into the office and confronts Sampson, revealing the gold was looted in Coast and smuggled to Malta. Tewkesbury desperately wants to know if his father was a good man. Sampson explains they were under pressure to cut costs during the war, and there was no other way the decision was made. And when Tewkesbury asks about his father's specific role, Sampson admits the entire operation was his father's idea. Devastated, Tewkesbury walks out, Watson follows to comfort him, explaining that his father was a respected colonel in British India whom Tewkesbury worshipped, without ever questioning how much wrong he'd done. Enola begs Watson to say more, for both Sherlock's and Lady Tewkesbury's sake. He reveals that the gold never reached Britain. Tewkesbury's father, racked with guilt, deliberately sank the transport ship and claimed the gold went down with it, letting the British punish Maltese soldiers for the loss instead. He always called it pirate gold, the very phrase from the childhood cave stories, which suddenly makes sense to Enola. Enola realizes Moriarty doesn't actually know where the gold is buried, but she was counting on Enola to figure it out for her, which is exactly why she never killed her, despite easily being able to. Enola pieces together that Moriarty left every clue herself, including the Morse code on the mirror, knowing Tewkesbury was Enola's love and would lead her straight to the case. Enola rushes to Tewkesbury and says she has a plan. Along with Watson, Enola heads to the cave, certain Moriarty will be watching. Leaving Tewkesbury behind, worried but armed, she walks into the darkness, follows a stream, and spots a sign on a rock that matches several earlier clues. She finds a chain, pulls it, and a chest rises up. She breaks it open to find the gold. Coming back out, she finds Watson held at gunpoint by Moriarty, surrounded by her men. Moriarty says Sherlock will be released once she has what she needs, but Enola doesn't trust her and refuses to hand him over even as the gold is brought out. Just then, Enola smiles. An armed force led by Millie has surrounded Moriarty's men, forcing them to drop their weapons. Tewkesbury arrives too, and Moriarty appears to surrender her gun before pulling out 2 explosives and detonating them to escape amid the chaos. Enola runs after Moriarty. They each take horses, and a chase begins. Enola knocks her off her horse near the dungeon, and hand-to-hand combat breaks out. Enola starts to fade, but remembering Tewkesbury gives her renewed strength. Moriarty fights with a knife, but Enola fights back fiercely and finally overpowers her, running on into the dungeon to find her brother. Enola finds Sherlock and starts freeing Lady Tewkesbury first. Moriarty returns with a gun and beats Enola, while Lady Tewkesbury quietly frees Sherlock. Enola, recalling Sherlock's words that emotion is unnecessary, now insists it's necessary as Sherlock overpowers Moriarty, aiming the gun at her, ready to kill. Enola stops him, arguing that isn't what they stand for. He warns she'll only escape and return. Moriarty mocks him, but Enola calls him out for being emotional, and he lowers the gun. Lady Tewkesbury then knocks Moriarty out with a blow to the head. Officials discuss sending Moriarty to Britain's highest security prison with no chance of escape. Tewkesbury decides he'll travel back to Afghanistan with the gold, accompanied by Watson. Brigadier Sampson willingly accepts arrest, along with the governor. Sherlock looks over at Lady Tewkesbury, then tells Enola she was rather brave. She jokes that the codes in his notebook were hard to crack, and he replies, yet she solved it. He thanks her for everything and apologizes for their earlier argument. She says the same. He tells her she's a Holmes, but in truth, she's much more than that. They hug tightly. That night, Enola tells Tewkesbury she'll keep her name. He reveals he's giving up his title too, taking his birth name, Tebety Gore. At the ceremony, Eudora and Edith embrace. Millie talks Edith's ear off about his political party. Lady Tewkesbury blesses the couple, and the wedding proceeds joyfully.